Thank you for listening and supporting the Daily Memphian. Sign up for one of our many free newsletters and breaking news alerts at dailymemphian.com/email to receive the latest local news stories impacting our community. Our weekly newsletters cover everything from sports to arts and culture, business, food, and more, along with daily updates of all the news we publish each day. Sign up or manage your email preferences at dailymemphian.com/email.
I'm Bill Drees with the Daily Memphian. We are joined by Frankie Dakin, Deputy Chief of Staff to County Mayor Lee Harris, and Shelby County Commissioner Michael Whaley, who is Chairman of the Commission's Budget Committee. This is On the Record. We record Friday, March 3rd, 2023. This interview is part of a larger story on the proposal before the Shelby County Commission to set a timetable and goals for transitioning county government's vehicle fleet to a green fleet by a certain date. The Commission has advanced the ordinance with those goals and definitions to a third and final reading that, as we record, is scheduled for the Commission's March 20th meeting. So here's the timetable. By the end of 2027, a minimum of 5% of the light-duty and passenger vehicle fleet of county government controlled by the administration will be green. More on the definition of green vehicles in a moment. Starting in 2028, at least half of the eligible light-duty and passenger vehicles purchased, leased, or otherwise obtained every year by the county will be green. And starting in 2023, the county administration will not buy any light-duty or passenger vehicle powered exclusively by fossil fuels, quoting from the ordinance, unless it is fiscally reckless or technologically impossible to make a substitute. Now, a green vehicle is defined in the ordinance is any vehicle that employs technology that reduces fossil fuel consumption or greenhouse gas emissions. That includes fully electric drivetrain systems, plug-in hybrid vehicles, and hybrid electric vehicles using both a rechargeable energy storage system and combustible fuel. So with that lengthy introduction, has any of that changed as we approach the third and final vote coming up later this month?
No, I think you nailed it pretty well, Bill, as always. We're very excited to take it to a final reading and hopefully be able to get it on the books.
Okay. With all of that background, in order for this to pass on third and final reading later this month, as I understand it, it has to have a 2/3 majority or 9 votes on the commission instead of the usual simple majority of 7. And if you would, walk me through why there's a 9-vote requirement on this.
Yeah, Bill, it's Frankie, and thanks so much for having us on. You're exactly right. There is a 9-vote threshold. So what this ordinance really does is specifically it sets up new purchasing policies, new tools to help keep the public informed on our progress, and a really aggressive market-based timeline to modernize the Shelby County government fleet with more green vehicles. And because we're updating purchasing policies, it requires that 9-vote threshold. But we're really pleased so far. We've had robust bipartisan support on this ordinance. We have 7 sponsors, and we had 10 votes in the last commission meeting. So we still have a long ways to go, but we're really pleased with the support so far.
What are some of the issues that you're working with? And from what I can gather from the discussion I've heard, a lot of this is not necessarily opposition to the concept of a green fleet. It's just questions about how this works specifically, because purchasing and purchasing policies in any local government are a pretty complex undertaking, right?
Yes, that's right. I think you're right. I mean, there certainly is a lot of enthusiasm for the underlying goal here, which is to really revolutionize the fleet, and some of the details around how it's implemented, I think, are good questions to ask, and from what I've seen have been pretty well laid out. But I think that doesn't preclude, certainly, assuming we're able to, pass this ordinance, I think it certainly doesn't preclude changes that may need to happen to clarify things. But a lot of that work's already been done on the front end. to ensure that we can implement it quickly and meet those timelines and those goals that you laid out earlier.
Mm-hmm. None of the three deadlines in this ordinance fall in the current 4-year term of this commission or this mayor, which ends August 30th, 2026. So if this is approved, can the next commission or mayor reverse this policy?
Yeah, Bill. So you're spot on your milestones that you laid out. But I would say to get to those milestones, it requires considerable action by this administration and this commission. So that first milestone of 5% green vehicles requires us to at least double the electric and hybrid vehicles we have in our fleet right now. We are really well positioned to do that because of the partnership we've had with the commission, going back to when this conversation started back in 2019. So there are definitely, milestones we need to hit. But as with anything, there are opportunities to update this ordinance. So we hope that as future administrations, we have these rules on the books that it allows us to invest in electric vehicle infrastructure and help really position the county for the future to save taxpayer dollars, in that way. But future administrations may want to strengthen it. And the ordinance is written in such a way that you can come back to it. And as technologies develop, for example, you mentioned this is specifically light duty and passenger vehicles. That's because that's what's available in the market right now. We do have a fully electric medium duty vehicle in our fleet. But as those technologies become more affordable, we would encourage, future administrations to come back to this green fleet ordinance and add.
Mm-hmm. Right. So we've talked about percentages so far. Do you have numbers on the size of the county fleet that the administration controls? And I believe you said that hitting the 5% mark as a minimum by the end of 2027, that would actually double the number of green vehicles in the fleet. So give me some numbers to go with that if you have them.
Yeah, that's right, Bill. So any given day, we have, between 450 and 600, fleet vehicles on the road. And so what part of this ordinance does really is provide us with more updated information on an annual basis on the condition of that fleet, on the emissions, on the cost to maintain those vehicles. And so that's going to really help guide, decisions moving forward on what vehicles need to be replaced. So, if you just want to take that 600 number, 5% is 30 vehicles. We have approximately a dozen, green vehicles in the fleet right now. We think we're well, positioned, to double that number by 2027. One, because we've been doing it. We've already we made a historic purchase of hybrid vehicles. We've already purchased our first electric vehicles. And now we have an additional resource available through the Inflation Reduction Act, which expanded clean vehicle tax credits to local governments. So which really drives down the cost of these electric and plug-in electric vehicles to really almost a marginal difference between the conventional combustion engine.
Mm-hmm. Do you build the charging stations and that kind of infrastructure for this after you see specifically what kind of vehicles you're going to buy, or do you already have some of that in place with the first vehicles like this that you've bought in the past?
Yeah, so that's a really important point that we need to, also be investing in the infrastructure, and that's something that's already taking place. So there are charging stations that have been installed at various county offices that would be able to service these vehicles. And as we go through, the idea would be to continue to install that infrastructure. And my hope is that we see that proliferate, across the community beyond just the county government, so that we're seeing more green vehicle charging infrastructure in addition to certainly regular infrastructure that we have right now. But that is really what is needed to be able to get to a point where we have widespread adoption of more climate-friendly vehicles in our community.
Sure, and the example that comes to mind among private corporations, although it's a publicly held corporation, is our very own FedEx here in Memphis, which has worked on the conversion of a lot of its fleet to green vehicles. Did that influence this, and does that indicate how easy or how difficult it's going to be to scale the county fleet?
Yeah, so I believe FedEx has set a goal of zero emissions by 2040, which is a really aggressive goal. And obviously, they have a number of vehicles in their fleet. That's pretty much their operation. So yeah, we're excited about that. The government fleet is kind of apples to oranges in that way. But what we want to do here is show that organizations of various sizes, and everything from nonprofits to governments to for-profit, institutions, need to be thinking about this. Need to be thinking about how we adopt this sort of technology, not only so that we can address the bottom line, in our case, save taxpayer dollars, but because, Bill, it's really important that we're all concerned about our shared environment right now. And these vehicles, lower emissions, which means less cases of asthma. It also means less greenhouse gases that are, causing climate change right now. So these are really important things, and we hope to serve as a leader in this space and show that other governments and other organizations can adopt similar policies.
Mm-hmm. What about parts of the fleet that are outside of the administration, the mayor's control, the independent countywide elected officials? And I'm thinking specifically about the Shelby County Sheriff's Office. It sounds like from the wording of the ordinance that they're not part of this at this point.
That's right. This is specifically for vehicles that are within the control of the administration and the Division of Planning and Development, as well as Public Works and those divisions. The Sheriff's Department and some of the other elected officials are not explicitly included in this, but it does not preclude them in the future. I think that's the one thing that's exciting about this, is that there is an opportunity as we go forward to add additional departments to it, but we wanted to make sure that we started somewhere and had something on the books as a template to work from, and then be able to potentially grow it from there.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Let's talk about some nuts and bolts. In any time that the county purchases vehicles, whether they're fossil fuel or whether they're a green fleet. Currently, does the county buy or does it lease its fleet, or is this or is it currently some combination of that?
Yeah, Bill, most of our vehicles are purchased. And the typical life cycle of a vehicle is about 15 years, 150,000 miles. So nothing in this ordinance, means that we're going to dispose of vehicles that are within their usable life. And if we do, we're going to sell them back and we're going to return those funds to county government coffers. What this does do in terms of the nuts and bolts of our purchasing policies is it's really a good government ordinance, because right now, historically, the main item that they've looked at when purchasing vehicles is the purchase price. But we know that we need to be looking at the entire life cycle of a vehicle. So that's the fuel that the vehicle uses and the cost of that fuel. That's also the maintenance of those vehicles. So green vehicles will save us at least 25% over the course of that usable life of a vehicle. So while there may be a marginal difference in the purchase price of green vehicles, it's really going to save the county considerable amount over the life cycle of those vehicles.
Mm-hmm. And Commissioner Whaley, I've sat through more vehicle contract purchases that have been up for a vote than I care to remember, and probably that you care to remember. But I know that there is always a question when one of these contract comes before the county commission. Someone on the commission notices that there are inevitably no purchases from local dealers, that it tends to be out-of-state car dealers. Is that going to be the case with a green fleet? In terms of where the supply of these vehicles comes from?
Well, I mean, I think that component of it is still in effect and still exists, and certainly, where we can, I think it's good to try to source the vehicles locally, and I do believe there's some momentum behind that, even as we go forward with opportunities to source vehicles from the region, and we want to make sure that we're able to capitalize on that and invest back in that. So I think that question certainly will remain, and I think it's a good one. But my hope is that simultaneously we're also doing what we can to encourage the growth of those industries in our region. Certainly, I think everyone would point to the Ford plant as an opportunity. I mean, I think that's a huge one, but the hope is that there are others as well, and that we continue to look to those to both invest in the green vehicles, which are going to be good both for the climate and for the budget, but also make sure that we're investing in local companies as well.
Mm-hmm. So if approved on the third reading later this month, what do you think the purpose is, or what do you think the fallout from this is for others who might be considering green fleets, not only in local and state government, but also, small businesses, those kind of businesses, as well as the big corporations? Does this influence that to any degree, do you think?
Absolutely, Bill. That's exactly, why we're doing this too. We're innovating here in Shelby County government. We're taking advantage of, federal resources that, through the Inflation Reduction Act that really just went into place January 1st of this year. And we're showing that we can do it with a broad base of support. This commission, we're really excited about the bipartisan support. We're excited about the conversation that's been had so far. So, yeah, absolutely. We're going to share what we've learned through this process. We're going to share the ordinance with other local governments if they want to adopt their own green fleet ordinances. And we're willing to talk to any local government or small business that is just interested in this technology.
All right. A final point, and this goes back to what we talked about at the beginning of the conversation. Green energy policies, including those around vehicles, have been a very partisan issue in Congress nationally. And the commission, of course, is a partisan body of 9 Democrats and 4 Republicans. Is this ultimately a partisan question in any way for the commission, do you think?
No, I don't think so. I think it's evident first by the sponsors behind it, but I also think this is a unique opportunity to be able to come together around goals that I think we can all agree on, which is how do we both invest in the future, invest in our environment, and actually do so in a way that is going to save taxpayer dollars at the same time. And to me, that's a great opportunity, and it's exciting to see, so many different commissioners of different, partisan leanings come together around this ordinance.
All right, Frankie, I'll give you the last word on this. If this passes on third and final reading later this month, what's the administration's first step toward this?
Yeah, Bill. So we're gonna take it to every department and division and make sure that they understand as they're going through their planning. What technologies are available to them. We're going to work on the inventory and assessment to provide the public with updated information, just next year on the status of our fleet and the vehicles that we plan to purchase. I have to give a shout out to our Division of Planning and Development. They've worked really hard on this, and they've already identified the 10 vehicles in county government that we would probably replace first. And, over the life cycle of those vehicles with this green fleet ordinance in place, we expect to save, at least 25%, which comes out to about $400,000, over a 15-year period. And that's just, the benefits that we would see down the road from this ordinance being implemented in, the first couple of years.
All right. We've been talking with Shelby County Commissioner Michael Whaley, chairman of the body's Budget Committee, and Frankie Dakin, Deputy Chief of Staff to Shelby County Mayor Lee Harris. I'm Bill Drees, and this has been On the Record.
In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.